Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. I have been preparing for this video that I'm so excited to share with you. If you are a fan of Jane Austen, of the Regency era, of just historical facts about health and wellness, if you just in general want to be a more healthier person, I can't wait to share with you what I learned from this book called the Jane Austen Diet. Basically, the premise of this book is a man went through and kind of read through Jane Austen's novels. So if you don't know her, she's a huge author in the classic fiction genre and wrote books like Pride and Prejudice, Sense and Sensibility, Emma, all of those. Let me know in the comments below right now, are you a Jane Austen fan or not?
I love you. I never wish to be parted from you from this day on.
The premise of this book is he went through and read Jane Austen's books and kind of obtained facts from Jane Austen's life and learned how she viewed health and wellness. And even though this book is called the Jane Austen Diet, it's more than just food. It talks about exercise, it talks about mental health and all of those things, and it's just such a good read. So I highly recommend it. But I wanted to share with you a few things that I learned and really enjoyed from this book that I think you will appreciate hearing about. So number one is I learned from this book to not get too emotionally attached to food. And I'm going to read to you a little excerpt on this concept from the book. Okay, this is what it says. The only truly healthy food relationships in Austen world are the ones in effect that keep food at emotional arm's length. So I thought that was such an interesting point, something I haven't fully considered in my relationship with food is to not get to, they use the word touchy-feely with food. And isn't that so true that when we get too emotionally connected with food, and it makes it harder for us to eat healthily.
What a superbly featured room, and what excellent boiled potatoes. Many years since I've had such an exemplary vegetable.
The next thing I learned from this book, which is particularly interesting to me, as I think I've shared with you guys, I've tried to really work at cutting down my sugar intake, getting a more healthy relationship with desserts because I felt like I didn't have that. I overate on desserts. I love my cookies and all those things, but I hated the feeling of feeling guilty with eating too many sweets. So he talks about how during the Regency era they did eat desserts, but definitely quite a bit less. In fact, he said that Jane Austen's intake of sugar was, I'm reading, 75% less than what we eat nowadays. And I just thought that was very interesting. He goes on to share that Jane Austen would have had about 24 grams. I calculated, he writes it in teaspoons, but I went online and calculated that to grams because grams makes more sense to me. But transferring that to grams, how much she would have in a day compared to what the average person has in a day in our culture is so different. So 24 grams a day was about what she would have when it comes to sugar. Nowadays, the average person has about 80 grams of sugar a day, and that's just mind-boggling to think about. The next thing I learned and really enjoyed when it came to talking about exercise was that they made exercise a natural part of their life. And if you've watched or read any of the books by Jane Austen, just think about in the movies how many times walking is a part of the movie. Exercise was just a natural part, and that it didn't need to be this extreme overexerting exercise that nowadays we feel like we need to get a good workout. And this is what it says in the book. It says Jane's advice to keep exercise as light, pleasurable, and easy as possible isn't a sign of weakness at all, but of brilliant scientific sense. I thought that was so good. I think sometimes we have like a hate relationship. I wasn't even gonna say love-hate, but a hate relationship with exercise because we think it needs to be something where we're like dripping sweat and feeling miserable, when during this period, like walking was a big part of people's exercise, and they would do it for pleasure, like walking with friends or walking into town. And I know we can't live exactly that same way because a lot of us don't live in walking distance to the grocery store or something, but changing our mindset on making exercise just a normal part and more of a pleasurable part of our life, I think is really great to consider.
The exercise must be beneficial. Oh, yes. I encourage him to be in his garden as much as possible.
They also quote this concept of sitting is the new smoking, which I find is very, very interesting, but it makes sense, especially with my injury. I'm realizing how much sitting is contrary to being healthy. Another concept in this book in regards to exercise that I thought was very intriguing, because it's something I'm really bad at, and that's good posture. And they have a section where they talk about how posture was very important and an exercise in and of itself. Remember what I said in this point of making exercise just a part of your life? Their posture was an exercise in and of itself. So this is what it says in the book. Bellies, chests, shoulders, spines, necks all hang limp and loose, often hunched in a near permanent C pattern in front of the closest screen. That's how we act nowadays. To Austen, it would look like we've all unanimously adopted what she called the posture of reclining weakness, a body slouch Jane would have only associated with the sick, bedridden, or elderly. So it says later in here, basically Austenites got serious back and ab workouts when standing or sitting still.
Mr. Darcy and Mr. Bingley, ma'am.
It also talks about having your pelvis firmly beneath the rib cage, so you're not sticking out your stomach. You're contracting your abs, and you're sitting and standing. It says she stood firm in the way that they stood. So they were engaging their muscles to have really good posture. And it also, I love that I wrote here, to practice, tells you exactly how to have that posture. I would love to have better posture, because I feel like posture goes along with confidence and how you appear to others. When you see people with terrible posture, it makes people look less confident. The last little tidbit from this book that I really enjoyed, because you guys know how much I am interested in learning about mental health, this section was called Health and Happiness, the Mind-Body Connection. She talks about the importance of emotional courting, choosing your thoughts as wisely as you would choose your marriage partner. Jane Austen used that word courting, I guess.
I want to burst out laughing when I think that I have done what none of my sisters has. And I, the youngest of them all.
But that's a good mindset of thinking about what we choose to dwell on. I underlined this quote from the book. It says, "It's the common sense understanding that we can only experience negative emotions when we actively think about them in the present moment. And since most negative thoughts are the result of either ruminating over past traumas or future worries, we always have the power right now, right here, not to give our attention to them."
Now here is Mr. Bennet gone away. And I know he will fight Wickham, and then he will be killed, and then what is to become of us all?
I don't see this as the concept of like the power of positive thinking. I just see it as the concept of guarding our minds and our thoughts, being disciplined and careful what we choose to think about, and choosing to ask the Lord to help redeem our minds, our focus, to be more disciplined in our thoughts and not ruminating about the negative things, the things that we don't have control over, and putting our focus on godly things, joy, gratitude, thankfulness. I just think that's really important and a skill that I would like to have more in my life. So there's many more fabulous things in this book. And you know, I always have to preface, I don't necessarily agree with everything in this book. This is a fun read. I wouldn't take this as like, you know, a scientific book on mental and physical wellness. It's a fun read, but I feel like there's a lot of practical tips that apply to our day-to-day life. And if you're a Jane Austen fan, you will definitely love this book. You'll probably want to buy it like I did and have it in your collection. So I hope you enjoyed these tips that I learned, and that's what I wanted to share with you guys. See y'all in my next video. Bye guys.